So I've been with CPATH since the International Neonatal Consortium was started in, I think about 7 or 8 years ago. It was a mandate from FDA to really help babies. Babies were considered therapeutic orphans at the time, and we hadn't had a single drug approved to help preterm babies since surfactant in 1991. So it had been 25 years without any kind of major drug development for that population, despite the fact that we were spending $28 billion a year, and the United States had one of the highest rates of prematurity of any developed country in the world. Yeah, I think now is a time that people are recognizing how important these data are. And we were funded by the FDA with CPATH, so we wrote the grant together, CPATH and myself, with Dr. Romero and I as the PIs, and we're able to obtain funding to put together a unique data set. We had looked at all the data sets around the world that involve neonates, and none of them were comprehensive enough for our needs to really look at the drugs babies were exposed to and what their disease processes were, what their outcomes were. And so we decided to do one on our own. We had hoped that we would be able to get 50,000 patients, and we ended up getting 400,000 patients. So that's something we're really very proud of. But I will tell you, it was some of the hardest work I've ever done in my career. Many health centers and systems didn't want to share their data. The data that we got, we had to pay for, with people having to hire a variety of personnel to prepare the data. And then once we got it, it's an enormous effort to really categorize it, curate it, so we can use it. So those are ongoing efforts now, but it was a real accomplishment to be able to put this together with a specific focus on neonates. Well, the most important things right now is looking at outcomes. So we want a number of ways of using the data. The first is, can we enrich populations? So right now in most neonatal clinical trials, we just take a bunch of babies, and it could be hundreds or thousands, and treat half of them with a drug or a biologic and half with a placebo, and wait for the outcomes. And that's a very long, expensive, arduous process. And babies are among the most vulnerable and high-risk populations that we have. I mean, our smallest are at 22 weeks and weigh a half a pound right now. So it's really important that we can do things, identify the highest risk patients, for instance, put those into clinical trials so we can reduce the numbers and make those trials go more smoothly. We're looking now, and we've done the first phases of using some of the data and some of our patients as external or simulated controls. So instead of having a study with, let's say, 200 babies with half getting the drug or biologic and half getting placebo, maybe we only need 20 controls. And then the rest we can put in from our data set, and we can match it 1-to-1, 1-to-2. We can vary the ethnic and racial diversity. We can look at, does registry data behave better than electronic health record data or clinical trial data? So having these different data sources is really important. And then really looking at disease progression models. Right now, for instance, bronchopulmonary dysplasia is a chronic lung disease that babies get, who are treated with oxygen and ventilation for a variety of different disorders. And there's now 18 different definitions of BPD. And that is just not acceptable for us. And there has not been any type of drug development for that field. There's been no new drugs in the last 20 years. And yet the complication is increasing, and it's associated with longer-term complications like asthma, repeated hospital readmissions for infection. So can we really define this condition, study it, analyze it, and help regulators and help investigators and companies who are in this space do a better job? And we want to do it faster, cheaper, and better. Well, there's a tremendous emphasis on rare diseases. And Critical Path Institute is unique as an organization to be able to pull in all these different key stakeholders. And that's something that I love. We have parent groups, a variety of parent groups that are loud and clear that we need help. And you need to do a better job taking care of our patients so you can improve their outcomes. We have nursing organizations. We have academic investigators like myself throughout the world who all recognize that this is a unique opportunity that CPAT's provided with FDA. And most importantly, having the regulators in the room and not talking about any specific product, but how can we do this better? How can we get EMA and FDA on the same plane, giving the same type of advice? How can we advise companies about outcome measures for their clinical trials and facilitate those clinical trials and help them do a better job? I think that's really the goal, and no one else can do that. And it's really been a labor of love for me to recruit all my colleagues and friends from around the world. And that's been something that I've enjoyed the greatest, is getting to know the people from Japan and actually going there to speak on a variety of occasions, and going to Europe to speak to the regulators and other groups about how important our work really is.